If you want to be successful in your project, don't miss this video here. My name is Guilherme and I'm a project management specialist. I help professionals to become successful project managers. How do I do that in practice? How Yeah, it can be in a lot of different ways, from giving them training, teaching them how to do it, but even from giving them practical instructions in their project, helping them to gain clarity in their next steps, putting the right structure there to manage the team, the project, and to properly communicate with stakeholders. I've been doing that for a long time already. So if you need help, that's why I'm here. The topic that I'm going to talk about today, of course, it's a very important one. It's key performance indicators and the importance of making sure that you have good key performance indicators and how they align, of course, with your project and then with the company strategy. But before we go deeper into the discussion, make sure you like here this video, because if you like that, you help me to see the value of this video, but also you help to more people, that this video will reach more people will understand the importance of having good key performance indicators in their projects there. So of course, to start this discussion, I need to start quoting Peter Drucker. If you don't know him, Peter Drucker is considered the father of the modern management that we have there. And one of his very famous quotes there is like, you can manage what you don't measure. Basically, what says if you are working there and you don't have any way to measure your work to assess your performance or your progress, you are not going to manage anything what you do. You are just doing work, but you don't know what you are doing there. So it's also you cannot have a good feedback loop to improve what you're doing there. So for anything that you do, it's very important to have management to have a way to measure it. That can be for your personal goals. For example, if you have a personal goal, I want to read more. That's not a very good personal goal because it does not follow like a smart model there. Would be important to say, okay, what you want to read more, how many books you want to read, how many pages you want to read per day. That's a way to measure, to assess how you're doing, for example, in your habit of reading, for example. But of course, measurement is essential to companies to make sure that they can assess their performance, they can assess how things are going, but also to make sure that they have proper feedback loops to correct route when is needed. For example, in the case of the example I just gave for the reading, if you want to read, I don't know, thousand of pages per year, and it's half of year you haven't read anything that, so you can divide the 1,000 pages for the half of year for 180 days to facilitate to see how many pages that you need per day, and you can track there daily how you're going there. That's just a way to do it. Companies, they need to do that all the time. But there's another very important point here, because okay, there's a lot of companies that they don't measure anything, then they keep doing work, then they wonder why they cannot achieve good results. But there are companies that there's a lot of companies they are measuring some stuff. The problem is their measurements are not aligned with their goals and with their strategy. So you measure something that does not matter for you. So it's very important, of course, you have key performance indicators in your project, but also those key performance indicators, they need to be aligned here with the project goals, the project strategy of progress, and so on. And of course, that's why when you look for the performance domain there, measuring a project is one of the performance domain on the project on the PMBOK 7 edition there. Why? Because again, if you don't measure, you're not going to be able to manage. That's a very basic principle there that works all the time there. And if you are not measuring, you are not managing, but also you are not going to be able to manage stakeholder expectations. You are not going to be able to influence the project to reach their goals there. When you talk about indicators, you can have two types of indicators: leading KPIs and leading indicators and lagging indicators. In reality, you want to have both. Of course, the leading indicator is a bit more challenging to measure, but which is leading indicator will give you information how a project will end, so you can take action right now to make a correction, and a lagging indicator will just look what happened in the past. But okay, talking about measurement, why this is so important and why can be so meaningful. Uh, let me make an analogy here. Again, if you are traveling, think about you're traveling from Amsterdam to Paris. Why? Just because I'm in the Netherlands, so it's easier for me to say that. So if you're talking about if you want to travel by car from Amsterdam to Paris, and let's put you jump in your car and you start to drive it. What naturally that you do there if you're driving a car? Usually you're looking for the signs to see how far you are from a place. Sometimes you're looking there to measure, depending where you are taking paying attention to the speed of the car because also that gives you an idea if you're in the right direction when you're going to arrive in Paris. Other indicators that you have, you are checking the fuel level of your car to see if you need to put additional gas or not. Why? Because all those things are important if you want to travel from Amsterdam, if you want to go for a road trip. And people, they do that kind of naturally. I've never seen anyone that was traveling by car that would not pay attention the direction they are going to have an idea how far they are from something. They would not have an idea about the speed that they are traveling on, and they will not pay attention on the gasoline that I'm doing there. So those are three basic measures that everyone has, or kind of most of people. I'm not going to say everyone because it's I don't know everyone, of course, but I would say most of people use for traveling by car. So here are some KPIs that you need to manage the travel that you're going. Nowadays, you have even like you can use Google Maps. You can have estimations on the routes that you're going to take. You can have an estimation of time that you take. But all those things that the information that Google Maps provides you is basically on the direction that you're going and the speed of your car, and of course, map details information and so on. So this is a very simple example to show you how important to measure things in a project. But other very important thing is making sure that you are measuring the right stuff because as Peter Drucker also said, there's nothing more useless than doing something efficiently, something that should not have been done in the first place. What does it mean by that? That if you have a KPI that's not meaningful and you keep looking for ways to optimize this KPI to be more efficient, that's just a waste of time because this KPI there does not mean anything. Let me go back to the analogy I was making for a car here. Let's assume that you're traveling. Then you forget about to check the direction to see if you're going to the right direction. You're not checking again. You're not checking even, and then you forget about direction. You're only checking the speed of the car and the fuel consumption there. And you say, "Oh, I want to have an optimal fuel consumption here." So you kind of try to manage the speed of the car because usually if you go too fast, of course, if you are driving the autobahn are the roads in Germany where most of places don't have a speed limit. If you don't know that, what happens if you are traveling there? Yeah, you can go too fast. But the thing is, if you are going to drive at 200 kilometers per hour, your fuel consumption would be much higher than if you drive in general, depending on the car, of course, than if you drive at 100 kilometers per hour. So if you're traveling again from Paris to from Amsterdam to Paris, and then you say I'm only going to think about speed and I'm only going to think about fuel consumption. Then you keep trying to drive around 100 kilometers per hour to have your optimal fuel consumption, but you don't check your direction. So you're trying to be very efficient in your fuel consumption, but you're driving in the wrong direction. That means that in the end, what you're measuring does not help you. Uh, it can give you even some insights for you, but they're not going to be very meaningful to your goal there. Because if you're not taking a look on your direction, how far you are from a destination there, only the speed and the fuel consumption they are useless if you take out the main KPI there. And that's what a lot of companies do. And why I'm saying that? Because this is a very common mistake that in the end we are going to create a lot of problems. You're going to have a lot of trouble because your key performance indicators they are not aligned. So very important, you have key performance indicators, and as a bare minimum there, every project should have at least, and when I'm saying at least, I'm saying as a very bare minimum there, A key performance indicator that gives you an idea about your timeline, how your timeline is going. Are you going to get, are you close to achieve your goal there? And again, I'm talking about that. If you're following Scrum, you need a key performance indicator to take a look on the timeline. A lot of people they are going to use, or teams they use a burn up or a burn down, or you can use a cumulative flow chart, a cumulative flow diagram. There are other KPIs that you can use there, but it's very important that you have as a bare minimum a key performance indicator for time there, for whatever project that you're doing there. Because I'm assuming that if you're executing a project, you have a timeline in mind. Although sometimes you can be flexible in the time, you need to kind of track to see where you're going. Second, you also need to have, as a bare minimum, a KPI, a key performance indicator here that gives you an indication about cost of your project. Uh, Regardless the type of project. If you say I'm following Scrum, there, yes, you're following Scrum. Okay, you have your team member, you have your Scrum team that's working there, you have the number of sprints that you expect for your release. But of course, you need to have an idea what you can achieve to the release, what you're going to plan for the next release to have an idea how much it's going to cost. There's no, I've never seen any company in the world that you can just work there with limitless budget where you're not going to have questions at some point. So this is a bare minimum that any project should have. And of course, the way you're going to look for this KPI, some companies they have much more, they have more cost KPIs, they have business case KPI. But as a very bare minimum, you need to have those two. And why I'm saying as a very bare minimum there, because I've seen a lot of companies that they don't have key performance indicator in their projects. They keep executing. Sometimes they even have some numbers that they try to see that's a key performance indicator, but in reality they are not measuring anything. If you just look, okay, we spend the amount of money that you already used for a project. This is a lag indicator that does not say anything how you're going to end your project there. So, and what I've seen also having a traffic light guess asking for the project manager, what's the traffic light of your project? This is not a key performance indicator. This is at best a feeling of a project manager. And why I'm saying that? Because key performance indicator it needs to be more based on data. Of course, you can have a qualitative measurement there, but you also need something that's really based on data. Why I'm saying that? Because qualitative can be very subjective. And if you ask for all types of different project manager, if their project are red, yellow, or green, you can have all types of different answers depending on the project manager mood, depending on the project manager personality, depending how he wants to see things. There's a lot of project managers that by default they think that their project key performance indicator kind of reflects the quality of their work, which of course you can say it has some correlation, meaning that if you are a good project manager in general you should be able to keep your project under some types of control. But there are a lot of items that can happen in a project that are outside of a project manager control zone that can influence directly your project. So be careful with those things. For example, if you have a quality issue, if you have a design issue, unless the project manager, the designer, or the quality responsible there's it's not something that the project manager could predict. Of course, there's risk mitigation actions that you can take, but in the end, you cannot. There's something not outside of your control. Your suppliers, what's going to happen in your suppliers? It's outside of your control. Of course, there's ways you can try to manage it to minimize risks there. Yes, but it's outside of your control. So there's a lot of reasons why a project can be classified in a yellow or red situation that they do not reflect directly the project manager work or the project management competencies there. And I would say even more, if you as a project manager you never had a project that was in red, something is wrong. Unless you just started, but if you tell me that you have been doing project management for years and you've never had a project that was in a bad situation, that does not exist. That means that probably you're just trying to look for the positive side of everything, which is not a bad thing to do. It's not a bad to be a positive person, but you need to face what's going on to your project. And why I'm saying that? Because then the companies they think they have a KPI, a key performance indicator that's based on the project manager, only in the project manager view and the project manager feeling. And I've seen project managers that they never want to have a project in red or yellow because they think that will reflect bad on them. So they always look for nice stories to tell why the project, to say why things are going well into the project. And it's not about the project manager itself, or it's not about things are going well or not. But very nice if the project is delayed because there is an issue in the critical path, you can tell all the other activities that are going right there, but that does not affect the fact that the project is going to be delayed. So having a project, having just only this qualitative key performance indicator based on a feeling can be quite dangerous there. So you can ask the project management feeling, the project manager view, and of course, if you trust the person that he or she is a very competent person, that's good. But for a company to take a decision, it needs to be data driven. You cannot take a decision only based on project manager feelings there, or only based on a design feelings or quality feelings. You need to look for data to make a more assertive decision making process there. So if you already have a key performance indicator into your project, that's a good step. So yeah, I can tell you that you are ahead of most of the companies out there. What is important that you do next? You make sure that these key performance indicators they reflect well the status of the project, and they are also aligned with the project goals. And here I want to tell you a story about my experience that happened more than 10 years ago, probably at this stage. I was working still in Brazil as a project manager, and I was working with engineering, procurement, and construction projects. This was an infrastructure project, so I was building electrical substations or power substations there, wind farms, power supply for a mining company, power supply for utilities, and this kind of stuff. So, as part of the scope of my project, I always had a design, kind of a design phase, where I had a design team or an external company preparing, developing the design for me, so I could go and execute in the field, construct, assembly, commission, and deliver something to the customer. In one of my projects in the past, there was an internal design team because then there, of course there was a matrix organization. Then there was there the design manager, and he had a lot of a lot of people on his team that would design what we need to, there to progress and to deliver the project. The problem is for all the projects that they were being handled internally, and at this stage there we're talking about 4, 5, or 6 projects. The key performance indicator that the design manager he set there was a key performance indicator to make him to look good, meaning that he set up a key performance indicator to draw to issue a drawing. In practice, what does that mean? Well, in the design team they created the designer, he created or she created a drawing. Then you have an official, you issue this drawing officially. This at this stage had to go to a customer that would need to review the drawing and approve to make sure the drawing is released. For construction, we could only use, or for any other type of service to buy material, we could only use released designs. Why? Because you cannot start working if something is going to change it. What's the problem of having only a KPI that only measure the drawing issue there, and he would put all the weight in the progress there to measure this drawing issue there. What happened is he created the culture in the team that they need to issue drawings because of course he always want to be on time, and that was the highest weight of his KPI to make sure that he was always green. And so issue drawings fast. It's not difficult. You can create the frame, add a number. You can add any type of thing incomplete inside it, and send it for approval. But what happened when it gets to review? The review will make a lot of comments. We'll see there's a lot of missing things, and that come back to review, which because of the quality of the first issue, because you are only looking to speed, it gets a lot of time to review. But also your priority is not reviewing anything. Your priority is not releasing the drawings. Your priority is only issuing the drawings. So the entire team was focusing issuing the drawings, issuing the drawings. However, for the project, I could not do much with drawings that were not released. Meaning that if I have my team on site for the construction start or to the assembly or for the electrical test, if the drawings are not released, the team on site cannot do anything. So I had a huge gap into my project and where the number of drawings that should be released at this stage, and a lot of them they start to really block the progress. That's what could happen on site. So if you see then the drawings are not released, your construction starts to delay, your assembly starts to delay, your procurement starts to delay, and of course you end up delaying the entire project. But the design manager, he reported his KPI every month in the management meeting. For our side, everything is green. Then you enter the project KPI, it was red, delayed, 5%, 10% delay. And there was this discussion, and he was always the design manager, he was not involved. Of course, that also relates a bit with the bad leadership that we had in the company in the time, but that's maybe a content for another time. But then in one of the meetings, after some escalation, I told the design manager, I need release drawings. I don't care if your KPI is green because whatever you're measuring there, it's not meaningful for me. And this is, if I go back to the analogy that I mentioned about the car, this is like the situation that you are traveling and you forget about the direction. You just measure speed and gas consumption. That's what basically was doing. Oh, but my gas consumption here is perfect. Yeah, but you are going to the wrong direction. That means that you are going to need much more gasoline to come back later on. So was a KPI that was not meaningful, that does not add any value for us. And so he was trying to optimize this KPI to be more efficient, but in the end, this KPI was crap because it did not help. Or even though you say, okay, but it's an interesting information to see, it is. In the same case, if you're doing traveling by a car, measuring the gasoline consumption, that's something good to have an idea. Because in the end, you cannot have a release drawing if there's no the first issue of the drawing is not done there. But only measuring that, it does not help anything what you are trying to do. So for you, when you are looking for your project, you need to make sure that the key performance indicator there is something meaningful of your project. And then, of course, depending on the type of project, for example, if you are working with product development, what's an interesting KPI that you can look for a product there? Gross margin. By itself, gross margin gives you all the information about the project. No, because just a product gross margin does not mean that you are going to have a positive net present value. So that's why usually in our projects you need to have more than one KPI. Why? Because that helps you to form a view of a project where you're going. Now, going back to the analogy of the car here again, if I only measure the direction and the speed, would that be enough for me? Well, I would say that might be risky because if I don't check the fuel consumption, I might go run out of gas in the middle of the trip, far away from a gas station. So you also have a problem there. That's usually Why you need more than one key performance indicator in your project. And all types of project can have all types of indicator. You can look for lead time or project duration, if you want to call it, or time to market, depending you want to call it. You can look for gross margin. You can look for NPV. You can look for quality KPIs. You can look for quality KPIs for product. You can look for yield KPIs. Yield is the number of good products that you're going to produce in assembly line. For example, if you produce 100 if you start with 100 products, in the end you have, like, depending on the type of product, you have, I don't know, 98, 99 products. That means that you have a yield 99%, for example. Then you have one product that was scrapped due to a quality issue. That's common in mass production, by the way. But you need all those different KPIs being monitored to make sure that you can make corrections when it's needed. Because if you don't have those key performance indicators, first, if you don't have anything, yeah, you're not managing anything. If you have the wrong KPIs, likely you're managing the wrong things. That will not help you to achieve the project goal. It works exactly in the same way for an organization. How an organization set up a KPI? The organization has a mission, a vision, then they create a strategy, and based on that, on these objectives that you have there, they start to draft plans and break down those plans in measurable ways to achieve something there. So, if then that's, by the way, one of the things that a good portfolio initiative can take a look on there to make sure that all the project KPIs they are aligned, all the goals of the project they are aligned, their KPIs are aligned to make sure that you reach a strategy. But those are steps that you are measuring to make sure that you take something. For example, I'm not sure if you ever participate in one of the free events that I do, but when I talk about personal development, I end up usually talking about something about mindset, some setting up goals and so on. If you have a 5 year goal, if you have a 5 year vision there for your life, 5 year or 10 year or 15 year, depending how far you want to take a look on that, that's a vision. That's kind of the same thing as a company. So you need a goal for the year that you want to achieve, but you need a way to measure those goals that you're executing there, because this goal and this vision will only happen if you are taking the right steps to achieve that. And why I'm saying that? Well, because you need to find a way to measure those steps that you're taking. You need to find key performance indicators to measure the steps that you're taking. For example, let's say that you say, I don't know, I want to save 100, whatever number that you think about it there. I want to save 100 in a year. Well, what does it mean saving 100 in a year? Well, if you want to save 100 in a year, you need to save around 80, I don't know, 18 and a half per month in average to make sure that by the end of the year you have 100. So that's how you're going to measure your progress there. If you say you want to develop a skill, what do you need to do there? Well, you say to develop a skill, you need to read specific books to learn about the skill. You can do specific trainings to learn about the skill. You can look for experience to learn this skill. You can look for a mentor to help you to learn a skill. There are several different types of actions that are concrete and measurable that you can take to measure these. That's exactly the same point for a project, or that's exactly the same point and the same idea for a company. So without measuring the concrete steps that you're going to take there, you're not going to reach. You're not going to reach the 100 in the end of the year if you don't measure monthly what kind of savings that you have monthly. You're not going to reach your project goal. For example, in my case, I'm not going to be able to start the construction on time if I do not have this amount of release drawings here for me to have enough work to start a construction in the site there, or at least to be productive there. So key performance indicators are essential part of any project. And again, that's exactly why measurement is one of the performance domains that you can see here in the PMBOK. Let the performance domain, there's several items, but One of them is measurement. What's measurement again? Is making sure that you have the right key performance indicators so you can manage a project, so you can report to the organization properly, so you can provide the correct feedback for your stakeholders to manage their expectations, provide the correct feedback to your customer to manage their expectations, to make sure that if you have issues, you can come back with countermeasures that to make sure that you can track resources, work, and everything else. Without measurement, without key performance indicators, I can tell you that your project will fail. And there can be different types of measurement. I already mentioned a few of them. You can have measurements on the business case. But if you don't have any, and I've seen a lot of organizations there, I've seen organizations handling millions of dollars projects without measuring. They're just doing the work to work, coordinating activities and doing work. But why they're doing this work? Do you understand why? Do you understand the impact? And that's your focus there as a project manager. Because your ultimate goal as a project manager is to deliver value. Because the ultimate goal of any project is to deliver value. So if you cannot deliver value, you have a big problem there. Your problems will fail. You're going to get bad feedback, and you are going to face a lot of challenges in your career with your projects. So make sure that you have proper key performance indicators there. Remember that you can manage what you don't measure there. Again, make sure here that you add in the comments here what's your main takeaway from this video, because that helps me to understand what's your challenge there, and also helps me to understand if the message was well received from your side. If you have questions, feel free to add your questions here. Or also don't forget to follow me, because every week there's more project management content to help you to develop your skills there on YouTube, but also on Instagram. On Instagram, I have a daily Q&A box that that's there. You can ask all the types of project management questions that you have. Because if your goal is to develop your project management skills, my goal is to support you in this journey. Thank you and see you soon. Bye.